Welcome to The Pod, a podcast for women in healthcare leadership, a heartfelt space where women executives in healthcare and their allies unite to support and uplift each other with personal stories that inspire positive change, nurture optimistic mindsets, and celebrate diverse perspectives. I'm your host, Dr. Kristen Woods. Tension is the energy that binds us to our goals and keeps us moving forward. In this quote, Simon Sinek highlights the positive aspect of tension. It's not something to be feared or avoided, but rather something to be embraced and harnessed. Tension can be a driving force that fuels our ambition and motivates us to work toward our goals. Our guest today knows a lot about tension and the importance of leaning into it as she pursues the challenge of impacting healthcare transformation. Emily Brower is the new president and CEO of the National Association of ACOs. Prior to accepting this role, she served as Senior Vice President of Clinical Integration and Physician Services for Trinity Health, one of the largest multi-institutional Catholic health delivery systems in the nation, serving more than 30 million people across 22 states. In this role, she provided leadership and strategic direction within the evolving, accountable healthcare environment with an emphasis on clinical integration and transformation under alternative payment models. Emily joined Trinity Health from Atrius Health, where she last served as Vice President of Population Health. Prior to Atrius Health, Emily spent 15 years in operational, financial, and contracting leadership roles at Urban Medical Group, a Massachusetts nonprofit healthcare organization specializing in the care of medically complex, chronically ill populations across a community-based long-term care continuum. Emily received her BA from Smith College and her MBA from the New York University Stern School of Business. I'd like to welcome Emily to the podcast today.
Thank you, Kristen. So happy to be here.
It's just lovely to have you here. And I know when you start a new role, it can be like drinking from a fire hose. So I especially appreciate your time since you've just, 2 months into your new role?
Yep, 2 months in the new role, but I did serve on the board of the organization for many years prior. So obviously a very different role, but not as new to the organization as some others might be.
Absolutely. So you're familiar, but now you're really looking under the hood. So
that's right.
Well, I thought we'd start, Emily, if you would share a little bit about your experience in growing up.
Sure. So we were talking a little bit about our shared history, having sisters. So I grew up with 5 sisters and in Montclair, New Jersey, about 10 miles west of Manhattan. So New York City, always this important center point, but big family. And I would say a not atypical large family. And I was number 5 of 6. So having that much sort of distance between me and my parents, there was a very strong sense of being raised by my older sisters. So that certainly shaped me. And also the independence that comes in a big family where you don't have quite the microscope of your parents, and then again being so much younger than many of my sisters. So I think that definitely had a big part in shaping me.
Yes, absolutely. And I did think that was a fun little fact that we shared, that we both only have had sisters. I didn't have as many. I only had 2, or have 2. But what would you say was one of the most impactful lessons or values that they imparted on you?
Well, certainly that a sense of fun and activity and what to an outside person might seem chaos seemed chaotic in a big family with a lot going on. Just meant there was, always something different to do with maybe a different sister who was a different interests. So just being up for trying new things, doing things differently, and maybe even sort of up for a scrum uh, when that happened. So being pretty scrappy, I guess. And then, as I said, being on the younger and having a good strong sense of independence and being able to navigate my way through situations to be able to get what I needed.
Absolutely. I imagine you had to be a little bit scrappy with all those sisters and women around to really have your voice be heard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that was not a problem.
So, did they impact your choice to go into healthcare, or tell us, how did you end up in healthcare as a career?
Yeah. So a little bit of serendipity, actually. I know I had never thought about healthcare as a career. I worked in human service, so I moved to Boston, having worked in New York City for an international organization that serves homeless adolescents for many, many years. I mean, I worked there for a good number of years. And I thought, all right, this is my time. I sort of got my newly minted MBA. I'm going to go and marry, but without children yet. I'm going to do the management consulting route and really just see the world and see the world of business and all the things that I might be interested in doing. And in that process, somewhat randomly decided to apply for this job I saw that I just thought sounded really interesting. The way it was written in the ad was very compelling, and met with that group called Urban Medical Practice in Jamaica Plain, Boston, that very mission oriented set of nurse practitioners and physicians caring for some of the most medically complex people in the city of Boston, and thinking that some of these new demonstration programs and new models of payment might be better suited to the clinical model that they felt was important to deliver for these people. And it was very early in the days of what we would now call population health and total cost of care payment models. So this is the sort of first iteration of what we now call Medicare Advantage, and a number of demonstration programs that we would now call ISNPs, institutional special needs plans, and DSNPs, dual special needs plans. So those are all in their demonstration phase. And this group had heard enough about these models to say, maybe this is a better way to pay for the care that we're delivering. And I joined them to make that happen, turn that into a reality. And so what I connected with was sort of their orientation to improve the health of the people they serve, to find folks who were underserved, not well served in traditional care delivery models, and create something different for those. So it really connected more to my human service roots, I would say, than to me saying, oh, I want to work in healthcare, because I had actually made the decision to do something different, and then kind of got pulled back and persuaded by this vision that they had to provide better care. And because I didn't grow up in healthcare, I wasn't trying to figure out how to do something different from fee for service. I was just trying to figure out how to solve the problem in front of me. And I think that's maybe the thing that I'm good at, is having people be able to articulate a direction, a different way of doing something, and then my translating that into, okay, we need a network and we need contracts and we need to work with our health plans differently, and so turning those into actions, being able to really connect with somebody's vision of a better way, and then turning that into a series of actions and steps and processes. So that happened to be in healthcare, but I wasn't seeking out healthcare as a career.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I think there's a valuable nugget in there too about how important it is to have diverse perspectives, including from diversity of backgrounds, so experiences and such, because sometimes when we grow up in that system, like the healthcare system, and you mentioned fee for service, it's hard to think about other possibilities because we almost become blinded. We don't see the forest for the trees as well. And so your ability to come in and not feel bound by fee for service, but really to break it down into the components that are necessary to help us achieve an outcome can be a real gift that diversity of background brings. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your leadership journey then. You went to get you earned your MBA. You started looking around and you were working with urban health, but where did your leadership career take off?
Yeah. So it's funny, we chatted a little bit about I'm probably not that person who's very intentional and thinks a lot about leadership and who I am as a leader. I would say I'm more that person that recognizes people who are good at what they do and try and clear a path for them to do that work, get rid of the barriers so that they can be effective. And then I'm a problem solver, like back to the, what I said about my first healthcare role is I'm good at translating a vision into actions and steps and helping others do the same thing. And I think I'm also an encourager. You're an encourager, Kristen, right? Like when you and I worked together at Trinity Health, you're sort of naturally an encourager. You're interested in what people are doing, their thought process, how they get, and really helping them be able to articulate that and take barriers out of the way, right? So if you think about my leadership journey, I guess I could say is that's what I do. That's kind of what I'm good at. And so being able to find roles that need that is really right. In the end, it's all just about the right fit between what the skills are that you bring, the strengths you bring, and then the problem that the organization is trying to solve. And there's a little bit of a story around scaling, although I didn't say intentionally, I'm going to take what I learned and scale it. But if you look back, you could say, okay, so in the beginning, my healthcare career, working with that first group, was a very specific set of patients they were trying to improve care for. And there was a new way to solve for that. And then moving to a larger community, sort of Southeast Massachusetts, and then with Trinity Health, going to a national health system, and then now with NACOs, National Association of ACOs, an organization of all those organization members like Trinity Health and others who have made a significant commitment to transforming healthcare delivery through changing the payment model. So there's sort of a story of scaling as it happens to be, not because I set out necessarily in that intentional way that the question sort of implies. But I guess you could say that's been my journey. It's just perhaps solving problems, removing barriers at a different scale along the way.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting story. And one of the things I talked to my spouse about, who was on the show a couple episodes ago, is that not intentionally chasing a title or a role, but really chasing the impact and then leveraging your values and skills and lessons and perspectives to help see that impact realized. That's what I'm hearing from you as well. And I have a follow-up question about your leadership journey, that because I hadn't thought about scaling the way you talked about it, and it really intrigues me. As a leadership coach, I've talked to a lot of people about what got you here isn't going to keep you here or help you move forward, because a lot of times leaders get into roles by being really good at a technical skill or being a good problem solver, as you mentioned. But at some point, when we move into leadership, we have to enable the team and the people to be the problem solvers. And so, what I'm wondering is, were there any skills that you had to adapt or adjust as you worked to scale your talents?
Yeah, and that's a good one. And I think it will hopefully resonate with your listeners who are also operators and problem solvers the way I see myself is there's a tendency to get into the weeds. There's a curiosity about the problem and wanting to solve the problem that, as you say, my role now, and even in my role just previous to this, is really about helping other people do that. And so, but there is that tendency to go deep. And so I would say to my staff, you can tell me I'm being a Budinsky, make it a little bit silly, but give people words and language they can say, so that if it feels like I'm getting too much in your business, it's because I'm really curious, and that problem is exciting for me. And let me think with you about how you want to solve it. So tell me to back off if I'm getting too much about the way I would solve it, because I have to sometimes sit on my hands and let other people who bring other strengths and skills solve it the way they can effectively solve it, not try and solve it the way I would solve it. And so there is a push and pull there. And what I try and do is just be really transparent and open about the things that I know enough. I mean, I'm far enough, I'm just old enough, I guess, to know those things that I can do that I find interesting and fun, that really are not only not helpful, but sometimes can really, get in the way of someone else solving it. So I just try and call those out, and let people know, like, I'll try not to do that, but it's sort of a natural thing for me. And sometimes you might want to engage in that way because you're thinking through something, or sometimes you feel like you've got a good solution and you can just tell me not to be a Budinsky.
I love that term. I'm going to steal it, the Budinsky term. And another question I have about your role is, because healthcare is a matrixed and complex system to work in. It's highly regulated. It is highly matrixed. And I know the organizations that you've been in also were quite highly matrixed. So I'm curious on any. I'm going to ask two parts, which is probably not the right way to ask questions. But number one, were there skills that you learned growing up in a household with 7 women that helped you navigate a matrix organization? And or how did you have to adapt your style to have impact?
Yeah, so we live in a matrix, don't we? And I don't mean like the movie. Sorry, that
Feels
sounded
like that.
that sounded like that. But we are people working with people, solving problems that involve people. I mean, we, in my prior organization, we used to call it verticals and horizontals, that you have your work, you're always in the middle of a pot holder, and there are verticals and horizontals, and there's never really escaping. I mean, unless you're an individual contributor, right? Doing sort of one, a role with a lot of structure around it, you're always going to be finding your way through a matrix, whether an organization sort of officially says they're structured as a matrix or not, because you're just working with people, and people, generally speaking, are not doing one thing or thinking one thing. We are all, complex individuals with lots of desires and goals and talents. And so maybe it's, how to work effectively with people who are doing different jobs on different days. You could think of that as the equivalent of working in a highly matrixed organization, which is, I think, to really understand what somebody's good at, what their strengths are, what they enjoy, and give them that work to do, and take that work, right? Say, okay, thanks for that contribution, and then find the same piece from the other part of the potholder. I don't think I have anything really brilliant or insightful, except for to say the way we work is with people, the way we live is with people. And so understanding what motivates people, what they're good at, and playing to those strengths is always going to be a win. So finding out, in that potholder, where do people sit? What are they good at? What do they enjoy? And doing as much as you can to interact with them around that sort of sweet spot and engage them in work that's in that sweet spot. But I feel like it's just work with people, which is always going to be in a matrix.
I think that's a really strong point. When you're dealing with people, we're all complex ourselves because we bring lots of parts of ourselves to work every day. And as you said, most of us, especially as we move into bigger roles, have a lot of projects that we're balancing and departments that we're looking at. So, but leading people is pretty universal and transferable. And if we focus on that, it gives us a path forward without getting overwhelmed or buried by sometimes the complex nature that the org structure might look like. So I'm going to steal your potholder analogy too, because I think that's really clever, and a little more fun than verticals and horizontals. One of the things that has always struck me, Emily, since we've met and while we work together, is you are a very kind person and you radiate warmth and kindness. And sometimes that can be a challenge in getting your voice heard. So tell me about your thoughts on balancing kindness and assertiveness and any experiences you've had with that.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I guess I do think of myself as a kind person. I was raised by a mother with very strong values around every human being a child of God, and that there is inside every person goodness, and it's been my experience at work that people really bring like incredible positive energy to their work. They want to do a great job. They're very motivated. They want to know, what is expected of me? How can I match my desires, my contributions, my values to this organization, this work? And so, helping to make that connection is part of what we do as leaders. So I guess I don't so much see the need to balance kindness with assertiveness necessarily, like in terms of a voice.
Mm.
Um, but I guess it's more, I see it as is how to be direct and clear with people when about your expectations, the organization's needs, really crafting, being clear about the work that needs to get done, and also honoring and acknowledging what somebody is good at and what drives them. So I guess the tricky part, if I had to pull a thread in there, for me has been, I had one somebody who reported to me say, like, wanted some feedback and said, and just skip the part that you always do in the beginning where you tell me like I did really good at this and good at that. I just need the bottom line. I know I missed something there. I know it could do better. Just give me that part. So I had to laugh, like, because it's true that I see a lot of like real, like great things about people. And I tend to see like people just like doing really good work. And I always want to honor that. And I have to sometimes remember, and I know this enough about myself that I tell my staff this. If you just want, like, just give me this 1, 2, or 3 things I could do better, you can tell me in whatever words are comfortable for you, like skip the good part because you don't have time for it, or you're just, you're in a moment. You just, you could do something a little better. So how to do better in a way that still feels like it connects with and honors what somebody cares about and is good at. I think that is a little harder because for someone like me, because I don't want people to feel discouraged.
Right.
When they bring so much of themselves to a job, to a presentation, to a project, I'm always inclined to kind of honor that first and then provide the feedback for how it could be better. Whereas some people really do, they just want to get right to the, like, I know I could have done something better. What is that? So right. Sometimes that's a little bit of a conversation. So someone can give me permission to, like I said, like skip all the things you were going to say about what I did well. Just give me 1 or 2 things I could do better.
I appreciate that. And it is honoring the uniqueness of everybody, that some people need more encouragement and support to accept feedback and move forward with it in a non-judgmental way of themselves. And other people are more comfortable cutting to the chase. But what I love is that you're open to creating the dialogue and opening the conversation, making it safe for someone to say, no, I like to receive it this way. So if we can just cut right to the bottom line, that'd be great. So I love that. And what I keep hearing a lot in our conversation is knowing thyself. And it's often a spot that we start with in leadership coaching and self-development is you have to start with yourself. And I hear you talk about that a lot. And I don't know if it's conscious or subconscious, but you clearly do know yourself well and you lead from that, which creates a lot of authenticity. So is that just happened along the way, or have you put a lot of work into that?
Perhaps it's because I'm in my 60s. And so I have had more time, I guess, to know myself. We've all done these various assessments of styles, Myers-Briggs, Insights, DISC, the pick your one. And I once had the someone who administers these, and I said, "Oh, I've done this one before. Does it change much?" And she said, they don't change a lot, but what changes over time is it kind of hones in. So if you are more dispersed, it's more clear what your style is. Um, uh, and that makes sense to me because, over time, right, you maybe do less of, you're more direct, who you are. And if you pay attention, if you do those kinds of assessments and you pay attention and you understand how your style shows up under stress, how other people um, experience it, right? You sort of get better and more direct in accepting that is your style, and so you get better at it. And so perhaps that's why the sort of know yourself. I think for me, part of it is just comes over time, and you get more comfortable in your skin, and you're not always trying to say, you're not always so couching things and just being more direct. And I did have a colleague a couple of jobs ago when I turned 50 say to me, this is the time to stop apologizing for like who you are and the way you think and the way you talk. Just put all that behind you now. You're 50. And that was a while ago. So, I've aged since then, but I think there is something about just having more years under your belt that gets you more comfortable in your own skin and with who you are, enables you then to work with others, your boss, the people who report to you, and be clear and direct and transparent about what you need to be successful, and how you can sometimes get in the way of other success, and just being able to talk about that and being transparent about that. So I think maybe that just comes with, as I said, having a few years under my belt.
That really resonates with me as well, because life is a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But I think when we're younger, when we're in our 20s and we're forming that sense of self, and we're forming our careers and that professional identity, it feels more like a sprint, and like there are chances to win or chances to lose, and it feels a little binary at times. But over time, we see that, sometimes you don't get out of the starting blocks very well, but you have a lot of laps to make up for that misstep, or you trip over a hurdle. And again, there's still time. And so I appreciate that. That's what I'm hearing in this. And it's kind of a fun way to think about it. We're going to get down to our last couple of questions. One of the things I wanted to ask is, given a lot of the challenges in healthcare today, do you have a call to action for leaders in healthcare today that are trying to help move the system forward?
I guess it's really just stay at it. If I think about, if you had asked me, what did you think would be different in the Affordable Care Act and the creation of accountable care organizations and alternate payment models and all of that, would be that we would be farther along than we are now. And I think it can be discouraging how hard it is to change healthcare delivery. And I guess I got a little bit of good perspective on that, and when we were both together in our prior organizations, which is those organizations had been delivering healthcare for over 100 years. And here I was getting frustrated that in 12 years, we hadn't really changed it. Right? So it's a long game, and it is hard. It is super hard. And But what we see if you just think about, my little slice of the world and alternate payment models, value-based payment models, is the longer you're in it, the better you do. It is a long game. You got to be in it to win it, stick the course, like all those little sometimes trite sayings, they are absolutely true. And the hardest part is where we need to be working. So you started out in your quote today about tension. There's a wonderful quote. It might have been part or related to the passage you read. I really should look it up. But it's something about, the best organizations are not organizations that don't have tension. It's those that put the tension in the right place, because that's where change is, right? And so to say it's super, super hard is absolutely true, right? And there's a lot of tension in changing care delivery. But so therefore, that's the place we need to be working. And so you got to go where the tension is. I don't remember exactly what your quote was, and just keep putting the tension in that place, and keep putting the effort and the energy for change in that same place. And we can't give up. We can't agree to just go back to the status quo. We have good momentum around delivery system transformation. We are making progress, and we just have to keep at it. You have to just keep at it.
Keep at it. Well, there you have it. Change is where the tension is. Stay in it. That's what I'm hearing. And I've taken away a couple good points, or not a couple, a lot, but some of my favorites were the Budinsky labeling, tell me when to bud out, and the potholder analogy of how we're all woven together in this crazy world and in the work that we're all trying to do. So I have a lot of really powerful takeaways. Emily, I want to thank you for the time that you've spent talking with me today. I know all of your good tidbits are going to have an impact on the viewership. And I'm excited to watch your new journey begin with NACOs and see how that goes. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the pod. I invite you to join our pod every month as we empower one another, fostering a world where women in healthcare leadership thrive.